Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar this morning. There'll be various people joining as we go, so I think we'll make a start, given it's just after 10. So it's Mark Bodger from iSeeIt. I'll be doing the top of the presentation this morning, and I'm joined with great thanks to Nigel and Louis from IBM. Nigel will be doing the product demonstration, and Louis will be there to help with any questions we may have as we go through on the Q&A. So yeah, without much ado, we've got a mix of people this morning from both customers and from prospects. So some of the content you see may be a bit repetitious if you're a customer, and maybe insightful if you're not. So please bear with us as we take you through the analytics journey today. So let's start. For most people, this is something you've invested in TM1 to solve, or IBM Analytics over the years. For people who are new to it, this is typically the situation that people are in before they invest. So multiple systems, disparate processes, and lots of Excel, with all the advantages and disadvantages that are displayed on here. So Excel is easy to use, easy to manage, but it doesn't become scalable, and it doesn't allow you to do any particular processing, and it's not particularly secure. So we don't really want to stay in that situation as a corporate as we move forward. And the main reason is because organizations can't really scale without a connected process. We've been there before, as FP&A people with disconnected financial plans and operational plans, and the final version may or may not be the version that the rest of the business are working to, and that leads to a little bit of distrust, and it becomes a finance plan and not a business plan. And I think the theme today is integrated business planning, but for me, it was always about being a business plan, not a finance-led plan. So many times I used to get the complaints in FP&A that it was, oh, it's finance's plan, but it'll never be the plan that we work to in operations. So that's something we're trying to address by connecting these data sources and connecting people and connecting technology, such that that message becomes not a disparate message, it becomes a joined up message within finance and across the operation. So what's also happening, and you'll all be part of this, I'm sure, in your finance functions, is that, in the past we've been scorekeepers and keeping the score and making sure that things worked and make sure we got the trial balance completed and all that great stuff. Most of us in FP&A, have been trying to drive what we call organizational change by bringing together these processes and bringing together this data. And really, why do we do that? We do it so we can create a body or an information source that people higher in the organization, in terms of decision makers, can actually trust the information that we're giving them. So helping them make those decisions based on trusted information. Way back when I was in FP&A, we used to produce reports, and in the bottom right corner, we put source of data, TM1, in the bottom right. That gave the CFO and the CEO some sense of confidence that that information had been reconciled and vetted by finance and then being used properly within the decision-making process. And that's something that I think we're trying to establish here with this presentation today, is that it's not a technical solution. Yes, it is, but it's also a business solution, and that's the most important thing to drive. The fact that people typically will make decisions on gut feel, but we've got to get away from that and start using proper analytics to help them make informed decisions, based on some source data that they can trust. So typically, when we meet new prospects and new customers, they are in this situation where they have many plans, many requirements, pretty much silo-based Excel solutions for each of these particular use cases. And I know some of you have moved along this path, and some of you are thinking about moving along this path. But for those of you who've just started in finance, the tendency is to think, I've completed my finance operation stuff, I don't need to go any further than that. And I think the reason today is to talk about, well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you extend that technology, IBM, into other areas of the business? So death to silos, why integration is key. So the silos is where people have been for many years, a marketing plan, a merchandising plan, finance plan, and all three are giving a different output or a different sales number or a different margin expectation over the year. So we've tried to get away from that through integration, and still to this day, over 2/3 of, or 58% of mid-sized companies are still using spreadsheets to manage the process. Is that a good state to be in 2021? I think the pandemic has brought forward an awful lot of that in terms of people's minds, that working at home, for example, disconnected in terms of the rest of the business, and sometimes systems, has made their jobs very difficult. So there is a need to move to a collaborative approach to solving this problem. I think the key for me is the right-hand side, which is highlighted in orange there, this concept of not being a finance plan, but being a business plan. And that's what we're trying to establish today with this conversation. So Good decisions are integrated decisions is the strap line here. If you coordinate all your business plans together, you're going to have a better view of the overall business. So you'll have an impact to know if I'm changing, a sales target and it's brought in by the marketing people, they can execute plans to make that happen. And then the merchandise people can make plans to ensure that product is brought in on time to enable that sale to happen. So by having that joined up planning process, you're going to have efficiencies improved and also hopefully profitability out of that. This is a diagram. I think I've presented this pretty much every year in the last 5 or so years at every event that I've run, and it's the one sort of soapbox topic I get onto every time I can with people looking at financial planning and analytics, especially through IBM. So whichever function you're in, and typically finance, we sit in the center, albeit we're on the right on this particular diagram. We tend to be the coordinators, the people that bring together the plans, the people that are responsible for presenting the plans, the final plans to the board. But to get to that plan, we've got to engage with our colleagues across the business. So, aligning the strategy. So that typically comes from the C-suite down. So how do we enact that C-suite strategy? By ensuring that the numbers that we create, align to that strategy. And we only do that by working with our colleagues in finance, operations, marketing, and IT. So we talk to these guys about their plans and how that can help, achieve the overall C-suite strategy. And that, if we were on the same page or with the same targets, will lead to better business results. So for those of you who haven't used Tier 1 before, or a product like this, it's pretty much the case of, you've got many, many systems and many, many sources of data, whether they are Salesforce for CRM, or it's NetSuite or Oracle for your ledgers, or it goes on and on and on. So lots of silo or even, departmental based solutions. With Planning Analytics, we can take some or all of those solutions and start importing that data and collecting that data in a controlled manner and putting that into a series of data cubes. Once that's being done and orchestrated, the end user experience then becomes very easy. You've got an Excel interface or a browser-based interface called Workspace, and through one or both of those interfaces, you can streamline that processing and consumption of data, whether you're a finance person or a non-finance person. Okay, and again, this is a feature function slide really for people who haven't had the product before. And the key things I've just mentioned are the simple web-based experience and the option to use the Microsoft Excel interface as you carry on. A lot of companies talk about throwing Excel away. Well, we don't want to throw it away. We're going to use it for its purpose, really, is to present the information at times and not actually collate or calculate the data within Excel, but using it as an information platform. So why Planning Analytics? So those who bought it, hopefully some of these were the reasons why you did. And for those who are thinking about it, it's pretty much about scalability for me. So it's a scalability as you go from a 5-user system to a 5,000-user system. Can the system take you there? Well, Planning Analytics can. I mean, we've got thousands of users, 7,000 customers plus across the world, and 19,000 users using that system today. But you can actually enhance what you're doing with your spreadsheets, and then you can build some really nice graphical implementation through the dashboarding as well. So we're trying to call this as a one-stop shop for analytics. So any data from any source can be pulled into a central repository, and all your users can then just use that as a central trusted data source. In terms of using Planning Analytics, I mean, pretty much now when we go to market, we talk to prospects and existing customers. If you haven't moved to cloud, pretty much most of them are thinking about moving to cloud. That seems to be the de facto choice of platform these days. But there are still people on-premise, and you can still buy on-premise, so it's still an option today. And in fact, if you bought on-premise, you can also move that to your own hosted cloud if you so wish, through Azure or something similar. So it's a multi options there in terms of deploying the cloud or the IBM Planning Analytics. So the key 3 things I think everybody gets from the solution today are, speed. I mean, we talk about speed a lot: acceleration, reducing planning cycles, better and quicker forecasting, and more ability to make better decisions quicker. So acceleration and speed is pretty much a strong call for a lot of people when look at the benefits. But for me, it's more than that. It's the collaboration, the working with your colleagues, the passing of information back and forth electronically rather than through spreadsheets and hand to mouth. So bringing those 2 together is important. And adding those together, that drives more agility and ability to do a reforecast or a plan in that same day or that same week. This is a slide I think we should data capture really for a lot of people. These are the sort of things we talk about a lot, but it'd be great to have a checklist now, tick off the ones we've actually achieved, in our FP&A careers. We talk about a lot of these things as we, look to buy new solutions or implement new solutions. So it's trying to get over the technical barrier and get to beyond that into the business value proposition. For me, this is that slide. So how do we use this technology to take us from the silo-based planning into this more coordinated value or business-led benefits case? And that's what we need to think about as we go through. Some more stats really from Forrester. Again, it still seems the same, though. In terms of people and like ourselves, we're trying to reduce the time it takes to complete the annual budget. For me, it's annual budgeting, yes, but it's rolling forecasts, it's quarterly forecasts, it's any type of reiteration of the plan that needs to be done quicker and faster. I think as we saw last year, many customers moving to cloud, but beyond that, doing multiple forecasts, furlough, on, off, back to work, yes, no. So many what-if scenarios were being tested during COVID. And I think that's now a mindset that people now know that they can do lots of forecasts. It's something that's now becoming intrinsic in the department's mindset. So whilst the pandemic hasn't been a great experience for the world, for FP&A, we've suddenly found a reason to be a lot more than we did prior, I guess. Faster processing, yes, a lot of people need that so they can get on with their jobs, but also, trying to get these things done with less time and less people. In terms of planning analytics, where does it sit in the market? It's been a market leader for many years, and its previous naming conventions, Tier 1, Cognos Tier 1, IBM Plan Analytics is the latest name in that. But as you see, it's up there in the market leader segment on the Bark survey. The other names you'll be familiar with, but IBM's still holding its weight up in the top echelons there. Which brings me to a very short review of L'Oreal's case study. And L'Oreal, as you know, it's a major brand, and it's one of the biggest luxury brands in the world. And they had lots of issues because of the scale of the company and the scale of where their operations were across many countries. They had lots of local solutions, users with having to do data crunching themselves and manual data entry, even doing manual trial balances in some places and loading those up. So it was quite a challenge to try and take that global organization with over 2,500 users and bring that into some sense of organizational sanity, if you like. So Lauren, who's the FP&A guy, he set about this project, engaged with IBM, and they actually implemented both planning analytics and Cognos analytics for various reasons. Planning analytics, particularly because of the scale and the size of the data sets. They're running something like 1 terabyte now of data across all their 2,500 users. But the key output, and you'll see this in a second, the key reason they did this was to get that trust in the data, to get that single portal of consistency that every user in the business could then use that to help guide them through decision making as they looked at the information produced by finance. And so it's been a tremendous success for L'Oreal. As I say, it's no small feat to create a system for 2,500 users, let alone across multiple business units and multiple countries. So L'Oreal had a tremendous success. And I think just to reflect on the slide we showed a couple of seconds ago, the acceleration, collaboration, agility. Well, L'Oreal achieved that and more, to be honest. Drastically reduced planning cycle times, increase the trust in the data. And for me, the biggest one was actually enabling collaboration across that, worldwide international business between 2,500 users was an amazing feat, and allowed them during the pandemic to do lots of pivoting and changing of their business direction as more and more channels moved to online from on-premise. So, a really good case study from L'Oreal to do a global rollout. So it gives you an idea of scalability as it does about functionality. So that's a bit of a whistle stop. So I think most of you will understand most of that content this morning, and thank you for listening. I'm going to hand over to Nigel now, who will try and put some of those words into action with a demonstration of the product.
Thanks, Mark. And apologies if there's any occasional background noise, because there's some roadworks that have just started right outside my house. So apologies for that. But can you see my screen, which is a IBM Planning Analytics portal? Great, thank you. Yeah, so the theme today is integrated business planning, and Mark included on the agenda examples of integrating with finance. Workforce planning was there as well. as well as supply chain. So because of that, I've got 3 sort of contrasting use cases to show you, which you can see listed on the right hand side. And it's really to show the flexibility and the versatility of how you can use, planning analytics to mold exactly around whatever area of the business that we're talking about. And it's there to accommodate what your processes are, as opposed to the other way around. So it's the sheer flexibility, really. So we'll kick off with the first example in the top right, and we're kicking off with a demand plan. So the business unit that's responsible for such a plan has got complete visibility of where they are in the planning process. So it's currently in progress, and I've got a nice clean navigation screen to go to the areas of my responsibility. And we can see here I've got effectively a blank canvas to kickstart a plan, and I've got my product hierarchy on the left hand side that I can drill up and drill down as required. Planning analytics has got lots of powerful data manipulation or data spreading or data collection and input capabilities. What I'm doing here is deciding to actually use last year's actuals or last year's data as a basis for my new plan going forward. And in this example, I'm going to be more aggressive than how we achieved last year, which was, the bottom line was 11.8 million. And I'm going to go for, 13.5 million. So straight away, the power of planning analytics has now instantly populated a plan based on my high level target, 13.5 million. And everything is proportionally based on what the values were for last year. And because I decided to enter the number in the bottom right hand corner, then of course it's spread all the way across my product hierarchy, all the way across my time horizon, across all of my customers, and so on. And planning analytics enables you to do data manipulation like you've just seen, either from the top down or from the bottom up, or even from the middle out. And I'm able to see all of the values that I've impacted as well, because they've all changed color. And if I'm happy with the impact, then I'm able to very easily save the values, and I get prompted that that's actually the case. I've got my visuals at the bottom as well, so I can visually see the impact of the values, and I'm also able to toggle across multiple hierarchies as well. So another power of planning analytics is being able to have flexibility with how you view your roll-ups, whether it's products, whether it's entities, and so on. So for example, if I'm wanting to see only the essential products that we classify as essential in our business, then I'm just a click away from doing that, or indeed the non-essential. And this is just a simple example where we've got one single set of data, one single product hierarchy, but multiple ways in how we may want to view that data. In this example for this demand plan, I'm going to consider that my work is done. So I'm going to lock it. And this is where you're starting to connect to other areas of the business. Upon locking the plan, it can be instigating anything that you want it to, whether it be making various plans read only, sending notifications to other individuals, making reports and analysis available to other people. And from this person's point of view, we can see that the plan has now been completed, and on to the next area of the business, which could be sales. So sales may need to take that baseline demand plan and flesh it out with far more detail. And this individual or this business unit may have far more detail that they need to enter to flesh out, and they may want to look at it from a customer perspective instead of from a product perspective, as an example. Also, on top of that, this complete transparency of the journey of the plan throughout the planning process. So if I go to the planning calendar, for example, we can see indeed that initial plan that was blank, it was made available and was ready to kick off at the 1st of January. But of course, a few minutes ago, it happened to be completed. It was submitted. So if I just update my page there, I'd opened this screen previously and it hadn't updated. So I've now refreshed, and I can see indeed that a few minutes ago that plan was indeed submitted. And you can have that, game of table tennis of, submitting plans, rejecting or reopening, providing commentary as to why you're wanting it to be reevaluated. Again, this is an example of how you might want to, facilitate the exchange and collaboration between a plan. So, for example, I could reopen, provide some commentary as to why I'm reopening it, and the status, as you can see, has now been bounced back to in progress. So going back to the demand plan, from the original person's perspective, we can see indeed it is now in progress. So you've got that sort of collaboration and the workflow assistance as you see fit. Again, integrating with another area of the organization. This is production. So you've had the demand and the sales collaboratively agreed upon. So you've got that consensus demand, and then over to production, where they've got various decisions to make as to how they can accommodate that demand. And we can indeed see that there happens to be a deficit for 3 months of the year. So we're going to be falling short of being able to accommodate that demand. And from this person's point of view, they've got various levers to be able to alleviate the situation, or indeed some high-level scenarios as well. So if fortunately everything was cleared from a lockdown perspective and it was back to business as usual, then of course that would increase our capacity instantly with the additional labour that's at our disposal. And then on to the fourth area of the business. In this IBP example, you've got that consensus demand. It's been able to be addressed from a production or a delivery point of view. And of course, all of that data needs to pump automatically through to the financials. So from an FP&A perspective, we can see a budget package you can see here. And this is reflecting all of the data that you've seen entered from scratch and then tweaked subsequently. So, for example, I can look at my profit and loss, and all of this data was produced or instantly calculated as a result of the last 5 minutes. And from an FP&A perspective, they need to have complete, transparency of where data and calculations are coming from. So, for example, if I wanted to understand that sales figure in period 4, then you would expect to be able to, drill down to that lower level of detail. And then I can follow my nose and carry out further analysis to understand exactly what the breakdown of those values are. That was a budget report pack being instantly produced. There's also, high level dashboards, which can be completely interactive. I've got a bridging chart here, for example, in the bottom left-hand side, and that's showing the, the breakdown of the net profit. Again, it's interactive. If I wanted to then see that in conjunction with the last year, then I'm able to filter that straight away. So that's example 1. I've got 2 more to get through, and I've chosen these to be completely contrasting examples. So we've seen that sort of workflow approach connecting 4 different areas of the business. This is just looking at connecting 2 areas of the business in this example. So we're kicking off with wanting to do a volume forecast. So not dissimilar to the demand plan that you saw in the previous example. But here we're using planning analytics, inbuilt AI forecasting. So as an example, I've got some historical data by product. I'm able to amend the data as I see fit if I'm wanting to influence how the forecast is going to be produced. As an example, I've got period 20. I might consider from a business decision point of view that that's a bit of an outlier. So it's an unnecessarily or an excessively high value. So I'm going to quickly average that out. And I'm happy with that changed data. So I've now got my data to go forward with from a forecasting perspective. And again, you're seeing the visuals instantly change at the bottom of the screen there. In terms of actually producing the forecast, you can see that I've only got history or actuals up until period 23, and I've yet to forecast for the future months. And I want to produce a forecast for all 5 products in this example. And I'm just a click away from lots of empowering choices. I can select from when I'm going to be producing a forecast for. I can decide how much of the data is going to be used in the past for projecting forwards. I can specify a confidence level as well. And I'm also able to cycle through all of the products to see exactly what the planning analytics statistical forecasting engine is suggesting that it does for me. And hitting the forecast button, the engine works through all of those 5 products, and depending on any trend or seasonality that it detects across all of those products, it evaluates various different algorithmic models and produces a forecast in the future. So for me, you know, without being a statistician, I've been able to get a cleverly produced baseline for my forecast. And of course, planning analytics being what it is, I'm able to very easily overlay that with my own manual decisions if I saw fit, and of course track it for accuracy as and when the actuals get dropped in, you know, from period 24 and onwards. And from that AI forecast that's been produced, that then is then handed over, or that information is shared with inventory or further into the supply chain. So from an inventory point of view, even though we were forecasting at the product level, that of course has got a significant impact on the bill of materials that are required for each of those products. So you can see here, I can toggle through for bill of material 1, that's only called upon from product A. Whereas if I look at bill of material 3, that's actually required by 2 different products. And yeah, another example there, you've got products C and D that are requiring that particular bill of material. And with any bill of material, you may have some initial stock at the beginning of your time horizon, and there will be the demands on that particular bill of material going, you know, over time because of the products that you're needing to produce. And this can, of course, also be tied in with any supplier assumptions in terms of what the lead time is to be able to get more stock to be able to satisfy your demand. So planning analytics is highlighting, you know, visually as to when you'll be falling short for any one bill of material. It's also utilizing the supplier assumptions to be able to indicate exactly when in time or ahead of time when you're needing to be placing an order to ensure that you're back on track. So this is producing a, you know, an order schedule for you, which of course is arming inventory with all the information to then negotiate with the suppliers as to who it gets which raw materials from. So that was AI forecasting and linking that into inventory. And then finally, we have an example of workforce planning. And if we have a look, first of all, at setting strategy. So this is, of course, extremely high level, but this shows you an example of how the versatility of planning analytics enables you to translate and connect two completely different levels within the organization. So what I mean by that is, if we have a look at strategic planning, there may be, high level levers in terms of what the direction is that you want the company to go in. So, for example, we've got a strategy overall to increase revenue or increase profitability, or there might be some legislation as a result of Brexit that's going to take impact at any point in the year. If I just, one foul swoop say that, well, actually, all of these drivers, all of these factors are going to be relevant in our business over the coming months. It could be that the legislation isn't going to be kicking in until period 8 in the year. But as you can see, I've got very clear switches or levers that I'm able to operate, and that's all automatically calculating the high level impact on the organization. And this isn't just from a financial point of view. There could be other more operational type levers as well. So we might have an initiative to introduce automation at a point in the year, and that could have an impact on reducing the need of the workforce in a particular area. And then you've got decisions to make as to, redeploying them or freeing up their time to be able to carry out better or more high value tasks. So you've got lots and lots of factors that could be affecting the workforce itself. So knowing the workforce is a completely crucial step. So you'd be needing to, link with HR systems, which of course Mark mentioned earlier. There's lots of connectivity and integration that you're able to have in place to be able to bring data into planning analytics. Here we're seeing an example of having loaded from a HR system what the skill levels are of the particular workforce, and we can understand the profile of that across the business. We can also understand what the gaps might be as well. So if we know the capability of the workforce and we know what high level drivers or levers are going to be taking place over, let's say, a 5-year period. It could be introducing automation, as you saw before. It could be legislation. All of that can have an impact on what shape or what the profile of the workforce is that you need in the future. And this is showing you that gap between what you've got and what you might need for the individual roles. And then, of course, you can start modeling planning analytics to enable you to start mapping, what skills should be aspired to by which individuals within the organization. So you can go right down to the individual named level. That's a whistle stop just at the high strategy level. But of course, all of that then needs to translate to what that means, on the shop floor, what you want from a workforce perspective on the ground. So that's where we start looking at operational planning, which is pretty much, the bread and butter of headcount and compensation planning. So we can see the high-level initiatives that were the direct same high-level initiatives that were captured at the strategic level. And from an operational workforce planning level, then it would be, a case of having the appropriate targets set from above, but then also now being able to plan from the bottom up in terms of, the employees in any particular team, how they're going to be remunerated, whether they're transferring from one department to another. There could be, furlough planning involved for certain individuals over certain times of the year, and you'd be wanting all the appropriate calculations based on the government guidelines to be incorporated. There could be new headcount as a result of needing a stronger workforce profile. So there could be targets set from that strategy that you saw before in terms of who you need to recruit and when. And all of this non-financial data that's being modeled by the individual sort of business unit owners all gets automatically calculated, from an existing employee point of view, and also from a total employee point of view, where you're able to understand the gap analysis with the target that's been set from above, what the impact is from the bottom-up perspective, and this all, of course, feeds into the Office of Finance and the FP&A functions for reporting elsewhere. And it's not a linear activity. It's very much iterative. You've got the strategy, which then translates down to the ground, and that's an iterative process until you've got that consensus demand. So that's a whistle stop of 3 contrasting use cases, and I believe that's pretty much on time. So back over to Mark.
Thanks, Nigel. I appreciate that. As you say, whistle stops tour, and it really is to give people a sense of the art of the possible, really. We're really at this section now, really, where it's just about if anybody's got any questions. You can either put it in the Q&A box at the bottom, or obviously, if we know, you can call us any time. But if you want to have a question now, please enter into the Q&A, or in fact, I'll open up the microphone so you can actually speak if you prefer to speak now. I just open those up. So if there are any questions, please shout up. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's fine. Thanks for joining this morning. I said we know most of you anyway, so if you need to call me privately or after this call, please do. Hope that's given some food for thought. Any other thoughts or questions you have on the subject today, please give me a shout. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. But thanks for your time this morning, and have a good day. Take care.